In the astrological forecast for Scorpios, impressive changes are coming. The period from June to July 2025 will be a turning point, the culmination of everything experienced and the starting point for a new life, where the representatives of this zodiac sign will take the leading position. According to accurate astronomical calculations and the influence of the mysterious 13th sign of the serpent, Scorpios will be able to break free from the shackles of the past and rethink their destiny. This is not just encouraged, but the result of celestial patterns. Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus, Venus, and Mercury, lining up in certain aspects, will open the way to opportunities previously unavailable to Scorpios or their environment. Changes will happen not in words, but in real events: love without fear, financial stability without concessions, decisions without regrets. Scorpios will be transformed into people who live without limitations, leaving the past behind. On June 15 this year, the planetary opposition of Jupiter and Saturn will break the vicious circle of inner tension that Scorpios have been immersed in for years. The fourth house of the horoscope will be activated, manifesting in the physical and material world. Gone will be the habits of survival for the sake of approval, silence out of fear, suppress emotions to appear strong. What previously seemed dangerous will become a source of strength. The new version of Scorpio is not just an existence, but a life filled with self-esteem. There is a moment of crystal clarity, the personality feels freedom of expression, the right to imperfection and liberation from the shackles of other people's opinions. No more room for fear of respite, guilt for moments of rest or dependence on the approval of others. Representatives of the sign of Scorpio experience an unprecedented state of inner peace, equanimity and unshakable self-confidence, backed by the conviction, "There's nothing wrong with me." This upheaval in consciousness is not the result of mere enthusiasm, but of a large-scale reorganization of the cosmic space, occurring under the influence of the constellation of the Serpentine. The configuration of the fourth house in square to Saturn becomes a turning point, destroying the outdated attitude, "You are either convenient, or no one needs you." This belief loses its relevance. On June 18, under the influence of Jupiter square Neptune, the sixth house awakens the theme of love, but in a completely different way. Scorpios are abandoning the usual scenarios where they took on impossible burdens, endured, proved their worth, and constantly saved others. The new Scorpio is not a rescuer, but an attraction magnet. He chooses, and he is chosen. The imbalance of roles in the relationship disappears. The Scorpio woman no longer has to conform to someone else's expectations and be comfortable. Nearby appears a man who sees her true essence, not just the outer shell. Scorpio man is freed from the obsessive comparison with past partners. Finally, there is one who is not interested in the result, but the man himself. And both partners stop fighting for attention, because it arises naturally and effortlessly. In the outside world is increasingly observed remarkable transformations in the behavior of people. Representatives of the sign of Scorpio, in particular, demonstrate straightforwardness in statements, not bothering to assess the possible reaction of others and not afraid to make an unfavorable impression. Authenticity becomes not an act of bravery, but rather a new behavioral norm. Interpersonal relationships take on the character of a source of energy and inspiration, moving away from exhausting struggle. The fear of losing one's partner gradually gives way to confidence, as one finds oneself with someone who values the union not out of convenience but out of a sense of deep respect. There is no longer a need for connections dictated by the desire to compensate for the inner emptiness. New acquaintances are made swiftly and boldly, without complicated strategies. There is the ability to instantly assess the essence of a person, screening out those who do not meet the internal criteria, and giving access to the true self to those who resonate. Intimacy ceases to be a way to fill a gap in the soul and becomes an affirmation of spiritual intimacy without the fear of being misunderstood. For those who are already in a long-term relationship, the issue of marriage comes to the forefront, but is not seen as a formality, but as a natural progression of a deep union. The marriage proposal may take the most unexpected form, but will always be dictated by sincerity and based on the real compatibility of the partners. Treason becomes the fate of those who could not go through the process of renewal. New Scorpio does not accept double standards and himself avoids such games. Love becomes the only acceptable option, excluding any compromise. Lies are recognized instantly, brought out into the open and are never forgiven. Everything that is created during this period is built on a solid foundation of mutual respect and sincere attraction. On June 29, the firmament witnesses a significant event. Mercury is in opposition to Pluto, heralding dramatic changes in the financial sphere, especially for Scorpio. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Scorpio is breaking free from the financial shadow, leaving behind a period of hardship and misery. Those who previously languished in debt pits, felt the bitterness of humiliation and depended on the mercy of fate, get a unique opportunity to start from scratch. The eighth house of the horoscope, traditionally associated with resources and ruled by Pluto, is no longer a symbol of the struggle for survival. It is now a territory of power and influence, where money comes not as a reward for obsequiousness, but as a natural result of the manifestation of one's true self. Scorpio, who previously had to tolerate disrespectful attitudes for the sake of preserving a source of income, gains confidence and sets the rules of the game himself. Hired employee receives a tempting offer, bypassing intermediaries, and the entrepreneur makes a rapid leap to a new level thanks to an unexpectedly concluded contract. A retiree regains his self-esteem when he has the opportunity to spend money on himself and not just on immediate needs. The manager decides to change the team, refusing to continue supporting those who are used to living at other people's expense. Job seekers suddenly find a place where their personal qualities are valued, not just formal compliance with the requirements of the resume. And this is not a coincidence, but the result of the exact inclusion of the eighth house under the influence of a powerful opposition, specially customized for Scorpios, whose sign is ruled by Pluto. Money ceases to be a source of vulnerability and becomes a reliable support. Everything that was previously taken away by force is now coming back under control. The new Scorpio is a man who doesn't feel the need to justify his desires or explain why he needs more money. He just takes it, showing respect for himself and without fear of negative consequences. On July 7, Uranus moves into Gemini, occupying the 10th house, which marks the end of the period of self-seeking. It is time to act rather than reflect. The serpentine dispels illusions and stops aimless wandering down alien paths. Scorpios no longer need to suffer the choice between a comfortable job and a true calling, between stability and self-realization. The vector becomes clear, the foreign will fall away by itself, and their own will manifest as an electric discharge. The era of pretense is coming to an end, giving way to a period when it is possible to be yourself and make money at it. People who have been playing imposed roles for years are shedding their masks. Women are abandoning other people's scripts, and men are no longer exhausting themselves for approval. Self-esteem becomes the norm, not the exception. Work ceases to be a source of burnout, because the cause favored is not destructive, but creative. This is how the new Scorpio is formed, which seeks not to please everyone, but to match himself, and he succeeds like no one else. On July 18, Mercury turns in Leo. The 12th house activates the darkest corners of Scorpio's soul, burning out fears, inhibitions, and internal contradictions. No esotericism, everything is very concrete. The old Scorpio was afraid of losing control, purpose, love and the meaning of life. Now these fears no longer hold sway over him. Thanks to Mercury retrograde under Leo and the influence of the serpentine, the reboot process begins. The 12th house brings not panic, but knowledge. Answers come not from logical deductions, but from dreams, intuition and subconsciousness, which begins to speak directly, clearly, without distortions and illusions. Fears turn into facts, and facts lose their power. Scorpio, who previously lived in a mode of constant anxiety, now operates on the principle, if it's not my thing, I don't take it up or try it. Those who were afraid to repeat the mistakes of parents, who lived with the feeling that nothing will work out, for the first time feel truly free. Waking up rested, they realize that they will no longer cling to what is destroying them. Enough is enough, fed up. Seeing the dream or image gives them an answer, who to distance themselves from, where to move, who to no longer trust. This is not psychotherapy, psychology, or advice from specialists. It is the deep self that gives everything you need. And this is not magic, but activation of the 12th house in its purest form under the influence of high-frequency energies of the 13th sign, the Serpentine. Scorpio acquires 4 new, significant qualities, as if an attribute of new power. The first of these is an imperturbable calmness, which should not be confused with apathy or inner armor. This is the ability to keep cool when passions are raging around him. Shouts, threats, manipulations bounce off Scorpio without affecting his inner balance. The second attribute, independence from other people's opinions. There is no longer a need for constant approval, in questions like, will it be right if I do this? Scorpio acts based on his own beliefs and intuition. The third hallmark is crystal clarity. Scorpio sees lies, recognizes those who are trying to take advantage of him or stalling. And, most importantly, he has no intention of putting up with it any longer. Finally, the fourth attribute is a break with imposed obligations. Everything that previously seemed a duty, a necessity, a condition of someone's love, now disappears without a trace. There remains only the freedom to be yourself. Such a Scorpio does not need salvation. He himself, the force that can change the world around him, and no one dares to contradict him. On July 31st, when Venus in Cancer completes the transformation of the inner state, happiness is no longer an abstract theory or pipe dream. It becomes a concrete feeling that permeates the body and reality. For the first time in his life, Scorpio gets the right to simply be, without controlling every moment, without straining to keep everything under control, without adjusting to others to avoid loss. He can be himself without fear of anxiety and tension. The Scorpio woman is freed from the need to hold herself back for the sake of others' comfort. She wakes up with a sense of security that feels real and unshakable. The Scorpio man no longer negotiates internally as if every morning is a battle. Gone are the habits of self-punishment for showing weakness, with endless, must, bear with it. For the first time, he begins to respect himself not for strength, but for honesty before himself, realizing that everything else will be attached. This is happiness, in which you do not need to win love, prove your worth or agree to less, just to avoid being alone. This is internal stability, confidence that all the difficulties of the past were not in vain and will not be repeated. The Serpentine opens a new chapter of life, from survival mode to a state of fulfillment. There is no longer a need to play someone else's role. Now the whole scene belongs to him. Scorpio does not need proof of his existence, his presence is felt by everyone around him. Nowadays, thanks to self-analysis, each representative of this sign has a deeper understanding of his own essence than ever before. According to the established Western astrological tradition, the period of Scorpio covers the time period from October 23 to November 21. It is noteworthy that in November of this year, the planet Jupiter will make a transition into the constellation of Serpent, marking the upcoming arrival of the 13th sign of the zodiac right after Scorpio. It is during this period that the theme of Serpentine will come to the forefront, and many people will realize that their inner feelings of, not quite Scorpio, were not just an illusion, but a harbinger of coming change and renewal. Scorpios have experienced many difficulties and unspoken grievances, so now is the time to look closely at what is happening around you. Do not be in a hurry to jump to conclusions, for the truth is revealed only when the right moment comes.